Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video. Do you know these checkmate patterns? So I just have some more for you today. So as always, pause the video at any time if you need more time to calculate and figure it out. But these range from 500 to 1500, so there should be some easier ones mixed in with some that might be a little more difficult. But just remember, regular daily checkmate puzzles, tactics puzzles, all of that will help you improve more quickly. Okay, so in this position, the king has just moved here. It was under check by the knight. So we want to try and trap this king, of course, and the first thing you want to do is look at checks, captures, or threats when you're trying to figure out what move to make. Checks first. As always, they are the most forcing. So how can we check this king? The only thing we can do is move our knight, it looks like, to deliver a check. But then this bishop could pick off our queen. So we have to see if there's a follow-up. You don't want to just check the king because you can. You want to find out if there's a follow-up after you deliver that check, especially if there's a winning follow-up available. So pause if you need more time to think. If not, here we go. We have knight dropping back here, delivering a discovered check. And if the bishop captures, well then our rook can deliver a check to the king, and the king will be forced to run back up into the corner because the knight would be protecting that rook. And then the rook could deliver the mate here on h7. So see if you can figure that out in your head. Here we go. So knight delivers that discovered attack, but the queen is captured. Now we deliver the rook check and the mate here. So interesting little checkmate pattern there. You always want to check out or check for these little knight and rook combos where the knight and rook can work together. A lot of times the knight will be on this square here and deliver a rook check here or here for mate. So, and the knight, of course, would back that rook up if the knight were here on f6. All right, on to the next one. We have a bishop capture here. All right, but we are looking for mating threats. So look for those checks. We do have this possible check here, but the king could just step forward and escape. So what is another possibility? The rook is lined up on the king. Now always take a second look at these check possibilities that don't seem very likely at first. You think, oh, if I capture here, well, the pawn could capture. But then you have to dig a little bit deeper, and hopefully you found this other rook is able to deliver the mate here. All right. Check and mate. Another little knight and rook combo. Okay, so what do we have here? A bishop was checking the king. The king steps back, and we're looking for a way to get at this king. All right, we want to look at all the checks. So we have multiple queen checks possible. So here, here. We even could go here. Queen could deliver a check here as well as the bishop. But then the pawn could block. So remember, whenever you're trying to attack a king and you put them in check, they have one of three options generally. To capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run from the attacker. And sometimes, not all those options are available. So here, also, if we check this way, the queen or bishop could block here. All right, so maybe we need to go here and deliver the check. And then if the king were to run here or here, we could deliver a mate here. The king could also try and run out this way. So if the king runs to c6 after we check with the queen here, and the king goes here, then what do we do? Oh, then we have a nice little pattern. Okay, so pause and see if you can calculate this if you haven't already figured it out. All right, I'm thinking that we can go here delivering a check. Now, once we do that, the king has different squares he can move to. If he goes here, we can deliver a mate here. And a mate will also be delivered if the king steps to e7. Then queen to f7 is mate. But if the king runs here to c6, then we can deliver a mate here. All right, here we go. And the king instead steps up this way. So we deliver the mate backed up by our bishop. All right, I hope you found that one. On to the next one. Oh, what was that? A queen? Did they just capture our queen? Okay. All right, well, we want to deliver a mate. So look for those checks, and it looks like there's only, one check possible here. And it looks like it's going to be a checkmate that I mentioned earlier where the rook and knight work together. All right, pause if you need more time. If not, here we go. We have a check possible. The king cannot move because our knight is covering these escape squares here. So, if the queen blocks, we just capture, delivering check again. If the rook blocks, well, then we just capture and deliver mate by rook to h2 there. All right, here we go. Capture, or excuse me, check and then capture, the block and the mate. So this is a good pattern to know. Try and use your rook and knight together. And remember, if the knight, if you can place it on f3 here or c3, especially if the king's in the corner, the knight will cover these two squares, like it does here. So this is a good pattern to know. If the king is trapped in that corner and the rook can deliver a check backed up by the knight, it can be a mate. All right, on to the next one. Okay, the rook is attacking our knight. What can we do about that? Well, we have a great little pattern here using our rook and knight once more. Okay, pause if you need more time. See if you can figure it out. If not, here we go. We're going to sacrifice a rook here. Now the knight is covering these escape squares here and here. So the king will be forced to capture, and then we bring another rook over, and the only thing they can do is block with the bishop, but then we'll capture and deliver the mate. All right, see if you can figure that out in your head if you haven't already. Here we go. Sacrifice, capture, check, and capture with checkmate. On to the next one. Queen has captured a pawn in the center, an unprotected pawn. Our knight is under attack and is not protected. What can we do here? All right, this is a very famous checkmate pattern that everybody should be aware of, especially when your opponent castles on the queen side like this. We notice that we have a bishop covering these squares around the king. And the knight and rook are blocking the king's escape. So the king is kind of in a stalemated position. It can't go anywhere. And when you get the king in a position where it's unable to move, take a second look. There could be a mate in the works. All right, what can we do here? Well, it looks like we may have an opportunity for a queen sacrifice. So see if you can figure that out. Here we go. We're going to capture with check. The king can't move. So remember, when the king is in check, there's three options. Capture the attacker, block, or run. And the king can't run and he can't block. So the only option is to capture with this pawn. So we sacrifice the queen, but that opens up a diagonal here for the other bishop. All right, here we go. And mate. So a crisscrossing pattern with these bishops. We sacrifice the queen and deliver that mate. All right. Next problem. The queen is captured here. What are we going to do? Well, it's a similar, there's a bird flying out the window, I just noticed. Okay, so here we're looking for checks. It's always important to keep an eye out for checks, both against your opponent and against your own king. But it's our turn and we're trying to mate this king. So the only check we have possible is by the knight here. So, do we want to go there? If we do that, the queen could drop back and capture, or the pawn could capture. So maybe we have a better option. What about the knight here? Well, the knight cannot be captured. The king will have to either step forward or step into the corner. But the knight will be cutting off these escape squares. And then we can capture the queen with mate on the H file. So check and mate. All right, I hope you got that one. Let's move on to the next one here. Oh, a bishop fork targeting both of our rooks. But we are looking for a mate here. So once again, that pattern where the knight and the rooks work together. So hopefully you found this. We're going to check, driving the king onto the H file. And also the knight will cut off these escape squares on the G file. Then we deliver a check by capturing here, sacrificing a rook. The king will be forced to capture. We bring the other rook over, delivering a check. The bishop can block here, but then we capture with mate. So hopefully you found that. Let's take a look. Check, sacrifice, check, and mate here. All right, the next one, problem number 9. The rook has moved to the open file, pinning our queen to the king here. So it's looking pretty grim for our queen. What can we do? Do we have a mate? All right. Well, look for those checks first. All right. Do we want to sacrifice the queen? Does that do anything? The king would be forced to capture. And then we could deliver a check, but their queen could block. Or the king could just escape towards the center. So that's not looking too good. All right. What other checks do we have? Well, there's a possibility of capturing with the bishop. The king could step forward. But then we would be able to check and mate with this bishop. So, if the rook blocked, well, then our queen could capture, delivering a mate here. All right, so hopefully you figured this out. We're going to capture with check, and then we can deliver a mate with our bishop here. All right, another good example of bishops working together, assisted by the queen here. So anytime there's a fianchettoed position and the bishop is gone from that position, always look for an attack, taking advantage of these weakened squares around the king. All right, number 10 here. I'll try and do 20 problems, so we're about halfway through. And it's always good to go over these problems, do them once, nice and slow, then go back and go through them again a little bit faster, and then try them a third time. And each time you go through these problems, try to go faster. And, by the time you go through about 7 times, that'll help burn all these patterns into your long-term memory. So we have a knight attacking our rook. What can we do here? All right. Well, this is similar to that queen sacrifice, but now we can sacrifice with the rook. So we're going to capture, and remember, when a king is in check, they have to capture the attacker, block, or run. The king cannot run because the bishop is covering escape squares, and his own pieces are blocking him from moving to the d file. So he can't block. He doesn't have anything that can go to c7 here and block. So we have a capture of the rook, but that opens the other file here for this light squared bishop. So capture and the mate, another crisscrossing bishop's checkmate pattern on the queen side here. So a good pattern to keep an eye out for. All right, we're halfway through. Let's keep moving here. Maybe I can speed it up a little bit. All right. Well, what can we do in this position? We have a knight hovering around the opponent's king. We have to watch out. Our opponent is threatening a mate here. Attacking, and the bishop is cutting off the escape along with this rook. So, checks first. This is a good little pattern here. This is a pretty good one. So see if you can figure this out. Especially you beginners out there, it might be a little more difficult. But look for all checks that are available to you, and that should help you figure this out. So pause if you need more time. If not, here we go. We are going to sacrifice a rook here, forcing the king to capture. But that allows the knight to move over to this important f6 square here, delivering a check, and at the same time covering these 2 squares here and here. So the king will be forced into the corner, and our rook can capture, delivering the mate here. So take a look at that. Here we go. Capture, check, and mate. So once again, that little pattern of the knight on this dark square, 1 square away diagonally from the king in the corner, and then the rook delivers a mate here. Now also, because the knight is covering both of these squares, you could deliver a mate by putting a rook on h7 as well, if that's an option in a different combination. All right, here we go. Rook attacking our queen. What can we do here? All right, what can black do? Okay. All right. Well, we have that little pattern again of the possibility. Check it out. See if you can figure it out on your own. Pause if you have to. If you're ready, here we go. So the knight delivering that check, covering these squares on the G file, preventing an escape by the king. And the king will be forced into the corner. And now we can set up the mate by sacrificing our queen, forcing the king to capture. And the king is trapped on the H file because of the knight. So we deliver a mate with the rook here. All right. see if you got that. Calculate it out in your head if you can. Here we go. So check, sacrifice, and rook mates. So, that good little pattern of the knight cutting off the G file and the rook delivering the mate on the half open H file. All right, the next problem. The knight has jumped forward here. Our bishop could capture, but that would give up our bishop pair, and we're looking for a mate. So, what can we do here? All right, this one could be a little trickier. We want to kind of break through to the king here, but how do we do that? We could deliver a check with this bishop, but our opponent doesn't have to capture, or does he? Maybe he does. Because if the king tries to run here, our queen can deliver a check. If our king goes over here after the bishop checks, then what? All right. So I'm thinking that's the way we go. We just sacrifice the bishop. Now, if they capture, well, then what do we do? Our queen delivers a check. The king would have to run back to where he was, but then we can push this pawn forward and then deliver a mate with the queen on h7, it looks like. All right, so that's what I'm thinking. But, and that's probably what will happen in this problem, but the king doesn't have to capture. If he doesn't, then what's the material looking like? 6 pawns against 6. The material, we would just go up a pawn. So let's see. All right, so he's capturing. Otherwise, he would just be down a pawn. Check, and now we can... Oh, that's an interesting little move, but that just delays the inevitable. Although it gives him time to move his rook out of the way. But then, well, we're going after that no matter what. Now we're just winning, and the knight is under attack as well. All right, I hope you figured that one out. Rook just captured. What are we going to do here? All right, well... Okay, there's a couple little options here. Look for all the checks. Look for all the checks that are possible. Okay, well, hopefully you figured this one out. Now, you don't want to overcomplicate it. Right now the king is attacking this rook. So if you capture here, he can just pick off your other rook, and then your knight will be under attack. So there is a mate in 1, it looks like. All you have to do is just bring your rook here, and the knight will cover that, and the knight will cover this escape square. So there we go, a mate in 1. Hopefully you found that basic pattern. And once again, it's that great pattern of having the knight one diagonal away from the king in the corner, so, or I guess 2 diagonal squares away, but you get the idea, 1 diagonal square in between them. So knight on f3 here, covering these covering these important squares. On to the next one. Okay, what do we have here? Rook, countering our rook. Oh, and this one looks familiar. I think we saw this one. So you should know how to solve this one from seeing it earlier in this video. So we're going to sacrifice, force the king to capture, deliver a check, and mate here. So hopefully you got this one. Here we go. check and mate. And there's that pattern once again. All right, on to the number 16 problem. Queen is centralized here, threatening to capture this pawn with a check. So we want to deliver a mate here. How do we do that? We have to be careful. If we go about it the wrong way, yeah, hopefully you found this one. So take a look at all the checks here. If we go here, remember when a king is being attacked by check, he has to capture the attacker, block, or run. If the piece is right beside the king, of course he can't block. But if he can capture the piece, then that's his option. Running is another option, but once again, the knight is covering these important escape squares. So we're going to check, bishop will capture, and our other rook will deliver mate. So here we go. And mate using that valuable pattern here. All right, 4 more problems. Pawn pushes forward, attacking our rook. Okay, what can we do to finish this off? All right, we're looking for checks. The queen has multiple checks around this king, but the queen can be captured on all of those, even here, but the bishop could capture. So we need something better. Do we check from here? The pawn would be forced to capture. That would open up this B file. And then, let's see, what do we do then? Then we could deliver a check, forcing the king down to here. And then we can deliver... Oh, maybe that won't work. So we really have to take a close look at this. If we go here, pawn captures, it opens up this B file. If we go here, the king will be forced to move here. Then what do we do? This one's giving me a little bit of a problem. So maybe this is a unfamiliar pattern, and that's why it's good to do regular tactics puzzles. You might come across patterns that you're unfamiliar with. And if you find those are the ones that you definitely want to go over multiple times to help you remember those better. All right, I still think we need to sacrifice the rook. They'll have to capture. We can deliver a check, but the king will escape to here. We could check here, but the queen can block. And then what do we do? Do we bring our other rook? Yeah, I'm overlooking something here in this problem. Okay, maybe there's something better. Let's see. Maybe. No, if we bring this rook up with the threat of this, they can capture our queen in the meantime. So it still looks like this problem right here. So check, pawn is forced to capture. Then we open this file up so we can deliver a check, but the king will have this escape. Then what do we do? Let's just go ahead and figure it out here. So now we can chase the king back and forth and get a draw out of it, but we're looking for checkmates, or a checkmate. See, if I go here, the queen can block, which I mentioned earlier. Oh, I have, no, man. All right. Well, all right, so they've blocked. Now what? Okay, this is what I overlooked. We have to go back here, forcing the queen to block, and then we can capture. So that one was a little more difficult. I hope you were able to find that one, because now, because the rook is covering this open file, the queen will be forced to block, and then we can capture the queen, delivering mate. That was a pretty tough one there. That might work more for your calculation abilities than your pattern recognition, although there were some good patterns in there. All right, we have 3 more. Bishop has just pinned this knight to the king, but no matter. The knight can stay there, and we have that pattern again. Rook will be able to deliver a mate here. So hopefully you found that one. All right, 2 more. Queen has just captured here. What are we going to do? Okay. Another common pattern. The knight is cutting off the G file. So we need to open up the H file with our queen, forcing the king to capture, and then the rook will swing over here, delivering a mate on the H file. All right. Here we go. And mate. So a great little pattern there. Knight is cutting off the king's escape, and rook delivers the mate. Okay, we're on the final problem. The king has just stepped into the corner. What are we going to do here? That looks to be the mistake, because it's setting up the possibility of going for this checkmate. You know, if we drop back to here, and then we're covering those valuable squares here and here, and the king is trapped in the corner, and the rook is threatening a mate here. So figure that out. Hopefully you have. Here we go. And we have a block, but we just go ahead and capture. So now we can deliver that mate, you know, with the knight cutting off the escape and the rook delivering the mate. All right, I hope you enjoyed these 20 checkmate patterns, and I encourage you to keep it up. You know, go over the problems, then you can go over them multiple times until they're burned into your memory. Feel free to leave comments, you know, if you would like some harder problems that are higher rated, or if these are good enough. Anyway, I always enjoy your comments. Please like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.